I'm going to try to summarize what I learned on my sabbatical. And there's a few dangers that I just want to put in front of you. The first one is, I don't want this to be a travel log of me like bragging about all the fun things I got to do on my vacation. That doesn't seem very helpful to anyone. The second thing that I want to warn you about is I was trying really hard not to think too much about what I was learning on my sabbatical, and it was just over the last couple days that I've spent a considerable amount of time walking and praying and thinking, God, what did I learn during this time? And I'd really like to just share it with you. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is what a sabbatical actually is. Because for many of us, it's something that will never happen in our lives. You might work in a job or be a stay-at-home mom, and like the idea that you're somehow going to get a sabbatical at some point might not be realistic for you. And I just want to say a sabbatical is not an extended vacation. Might sound like that, but it's a deliberate stop that makes you remember who's actually running things. This is a deeply biblical concept, the idea of sabbatical and Sabbath. In fact, those two words both come from the same root Hebrew word, Shabbat. And it's practiced in two ways in Israel's past. One is every single week on the Sabbath, on Shabbat, they would stop and rest, mimicking the God who created over 6 days and on the seventh rested. Also, later in Israel's history, it was instituted that they would have a sabbatical year, a sabbaticus, which is the Latin word for it, which was every seventh year the entire country would rest. Now, there's some debate among historians about whether Israel actually ever did it, but it was instructed by God that in the seventh year, they would allow the animals to rest, they would allow the land to rest, and they themselves would rest. Debts would be canceled. Land that had been lost through bad business dealings would be handed back to the family. A great reset in which we all would acknowledge, I'm not the one that's in charge of this land, these crops, my future, but God is. And so if there's any place in the world that should try to practice sabbatical habits, I think it's the church. And I'm sure that sounds in some way me trying to justify why I got an extended vacation. But I really think it's important, and one of the things I'm trying to reflect on is what are the things that I have taken away from this? I have 5 things I want to talk to you about today. And they're in 3 different categories. The first one is, what are the things that you've been handed? Number 2, what are the things that steal from you today? And number 3, who's there when you stop? Those are the 5 things I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to start at the beginning. Number 1, this is the first thing I think I learned on this vacation. You have a responsibility to invest in what has been entrusted to you. I don't know your specific situation, but I do know that time away and a vacation is not time to escape your responsibilities. It's a time to recalibrate what God has placed in your care, your health, your relationships, your gifts, your calling. One of the big dangers that pastors and people working in ministry can do is that this part of what has been handed to me can become everything. There's so many relationships. The things that made me start crying as soon as I got up here is you and the people that I've spent time investing in and loving. But there's also a danger that it can become everything for me and leaves nothing for me for the other things that I have to steward, including my own health, including my own family. Many of you know me and Rachel. We've been here for 26 years here at the church. But I'm sure many of you don't. This is what's been entrusted to me. This is my first priority. That's my wife, Rachel. She's sitting right over here. And those are my boys. That's Asher, and that's Beck. And this summer, I had the opportunity to really invest in what had been entrusted to me, my family. I'm so thankful that the elders granted me the time away. I got 10 weeks to spend over this summer with them. And it was very intentional. This is a picture of us in Bergen, Norway. We had an opportunity as a family to travel to visit Sweden and Norway together over the last number of weeks. We just got back about a week ago or so. But also, I got to spend time individually with Asher. That's a selfie that Asher took. He said he wanted to use for this morning, so I'm not... And Beck, at the beginning of the summer, I was able to take Beck. Beck is just getting ready to move into high school. He's leaving middle school and heading into his freshman year. In fact, he started this last week. And so we have a tradition in our family that has happened now twice, in which the summer before they go into high school, I take them on a man trip. And we went to the Sierra Nevada mountains, and we climbed a mountain and did hard things and ate food and laughed and sweat. And Asher just graduated high school, and he's heading off to college. And I had an opportunity to take him to my favorite place in the world and spend a week with just him in the Boundary Waters on the Canadian border. It was an investment that I was able to make in my family. Rachel and I got some time together as well. And I think it's just a huge reminder. I think about this quote from Billy Graham, one of the greatest modern evangelists in the church's history. And yet he says, when he looked back on his life, every day I was absent from my family is gone forever. I felt that. Heading into this season that we were moving into, I felt like this was an opportunity that I needed to ask for permission to step back and invest in them. And listen, you might not have that ability. You might not be granted that grace. But you also have times in your life and places where you can say, I need to set aside these things in order to focus on this thing that I've been entrusted to. I have spoken to older men in my life who I love and respect, who through tears have talked about this very impact. The time that they spent away from their children, away from their family, and what it cost them. We hear in ministry circles all the time about pastors who have ministry orphans. They didn't leave their wife, they didn't leave their children, but they're never around because they're so busy doing this. Building a platform for themselves, trying to be important, trying to care for people, trying to do good things. And yet, I didn't want to feel this at the end of my days. In fact, this is what Peter in 1 Peter talks about when he says, each of you should use whatever gift you've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. God has gifted you with so much. He's gifted you with people that surround you and rely on you. He's gifted you with gifts that are to be used on behalf of those that are around you. One of the things that I learned on this sabbatical was how important it really is. Each individual moment felt almost insignificant, like it didn't really matter, but at the end of the time I thought, those 10 weeks I will never regret. This is the thing that we have to wrestle with. This is the tension between it. This is what sabbatical actually pushes on. Number one, you are responsible. Also, you are not essential. This is the tension of faithful Christian living. You have been entrusted with much, but also it don't depend on you. Stepping out of leadership over the course of this summer, there are fears that come with it. There are fears. I talked to a pastor years ago, and I asked him what he thought about the idea of pastors getting sabbaticals. And he said, I wouldn't want to do it. And I said, why? And he said, half joking, because I'm afraid when I'll leave, you'll find out you don't actually need me. Yep. I laughed when he said it. I teased him about it. I said, that's not the right way to feel. And then I went to take my sabbatical, and some part of me thought, I sure hope they don't figure out they don't need me while I'm gone. And this is it with your family. This is it with your job. This is it with the places that you've been called, the places you've served, the schools that you've started. You are responsible for something, but you are not essential. God is doing what God is going to do. Will you participate with him or not? Both are true. Number two, second thing that I learned. Change is inevitable. Prepare yourself to embrace it. I know a ton of people in my life who say, I hate change. I'm just a person who doesn't like change. Now, I tend to be a person who embraces change. I like change. I like things to be changing all the time. But I know a lot of people, maybe I'm describing you, who say, man, if everything could stay exactly the same every day for the rest of my life, if I could predict everything, that would be amazing to me. And here's what I want to challenge you with in that. If that's the way you feel, there's something I want to push on. Life is in constant flux. And when we resist change, most of the time what it's actually confronting in us is that we want control. Change illustrates us losing control of something that we wanted control over. And when we're fearful of change, when we're resistant to change, most of the time, I think what's happening is deep down in your gut, there's an acknowledgement that that change means you've lost some version of control, and at the very best, it's going to take you a little time to get your control over that new situation. I feel it in my family. I love change. I like new things. Novelty is the spice of life to me, and yet the thing I don't want to change is my family. My family is uniquely close for a variety of reasons. We've had challenges in our life. We've had loss in our life. We've had circumstances that have wed us together as a unit, as a family unit that are unique to us and have made us a uniquely closely bonded family. And there's nothing I can do to avoid the fact that that's changing. Just the other day, Asher came downstairs. Beck had went back to school already. Rachel was back here at the office, and I was home with Asher, my oldest son. And he sat down, and we started talking about what movie we wanted to watch together. And I started crying. And he's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "I'm just really going to miss you. He's going away to college in 4 weeks. And I can't do anything about it." This was the season where it all was going to change. My youngest is going to high school, that's something, but our oldest is leaving the house. And he said to me, "Dad, come on, you're overreacting. I'm going to be home on the weekends. I'm going to be home on the holidays. I'm going to be home over the summer." And I'm trying to explain to him, it's not the same. And you feel it. So listen, change is coming for you. I don't know what change is coming for you, but a change is coming. Are you preparing yourself not only to survive it, but to embrace it? To say this next season might be even better than the seasons that we've had. There's a study I came across this week that I thought was really helpful. It was done back in the 50s by a psychologist that was looking at how do people survive difficulty in their life. And they did all of these personality tests to find out. And here's what they found out. That when people believe that your life is run by your decisions and your willpower versus people who believe that their life is controlled by forces outside of them, guess which group struggles more when change comes, when difficulty arrives? The group who thinks they're in control. We often don't like change because we want the illusion of being in control. And when things change that I didn't choose, that's not me. And when difficulty comes, when the job loss comes, where the relationship falls apart, where health is lost, where a child walks away from the faith, makes choices that you don't like, if you believe that that's all happening because you've made poor choices or you didn't exert enough power over it, you're going to be devastated. Everyone laughed back in the day when Carrie Underwood put out a song called "Jesus Take the Wheel," including me. But when I'm reading this study, I'm like, wait, isn't that what we're getting at? That it's like, listen, I'm here on the ride. I'm not responsible for the outcomes. I'm only responsible for my response to what's happening. You can surrender the outcomes to God. Now, you have responsibility. What is your responsibility? How you respond to those things in faith, in trust, in obedience. That's where true resilience lies when change comes. I'm still going to be sad when Asher goes off to his little apartment with his buddies at college. Don't let him hear me say little apartment. His amazing thing, right? See, even now I'm trying to belittle it because it's something I don't want to face. This is what God says through the prophet Isaiah to Israel, who's like, things are changing. They're not the way we want them. He says, forget those former things. Don't dwell on the past. See, I'm doing a new thing. And it's springing up. Do you perceive it? It's a thing that I want to embrace even here as a church. We cannot stay in the same place even if we want to. Life moves on, things change. God is doing a new thing. Do you have the eyes to see it? Are you ready to embrace it? Because I am. C.S. Lewis says it this way: there are far, far better things ahead than whatever we left behind. Here's point 3. Don't let your disappointments from the past keep you from joys in the future. One of the things that happens when you get a chance to step back, when I get the opportunity to step out of the ministry cycle and grind, is I think I came to a realization of how many small frustrations, small letdowns, small hurts, small disappointments quietly pile up over time. And they create, at least in me, a little bit of a cynicism like, well, I guess just the way it is. It can create a hardened heart that protects itself from those things. And stillness gives me a chance to shake that off. Now, if you've been around a couple of years ago, you heard the opportunity, because in the summer, usually coming back from a summer vacation, I try to do a sermon on what I learned on my summer vacation. It was inspired by our founding pastor, Tom Schrader, who did it every year. In 2024, we came back. I had taken my family on what was the dream adventure trip for me. Ever since we started having kids, I knew that someday I was going to take the whole family and we're going to go to my favorite place in the world, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness on the Canadian border in northern Minnesota. And we went, and it was apocalyptically terrible. We got 8 inches of rain in 3 hours on the first day. And we were supposed to be out there for a week having beautiful weather and swimming and fishing, and instead we were trying to save our lives. We turned a 7-day trip into a 3-day trip, paddling as fast as we could to get out through flooded portages and mosquitoes that were directly from the bowels of hell. And to this day, if you ask Rachel, we were just watching a show the other night and there was a bunch of bugs in the camera and she's like, oh, I just had a flashback. And every time that comes up, I knew it was going to haunt us for the rest of my days. I didn't get the dream trip I wanted with my family, and it was so bad, they will never return. And so this summer, I had prepared myself. I told Rachel, I said, I want to go back. I'm going to go back by myself. I'll go spend a week up there by myself. I want to recover it. And she said, no way, that's the most dangerous place I can imagine. You can't go by yourself. So I went to Asher sheepishly, my oldest, and I said, Asher, would you ever consider going with me? And he said, yeah, I would. See, here's the thing. Disappointment and things not turning out the way that you wanted, 100 small letdowns in your life, most of them not even worth mentioning, you're not going to bring up, they're not going to make a list. Those things will pile up on you and they will become discouragement. Nobody quits all at once. You quit because little disappointment and little failure and little loss happens over and over and over and over. And so now you start being realistic instead of hopeful. Right? You stop sowing. And because you decided to stop sowing, you stop reaping. These are the things that we have to avoid. Right? Galatians, when Paul writes to the church in Galatia, he knows that they're facing things that are hard, and he says, let's not become weary at doing those good things, because if we keep it up, a harvest will come. And it's absolutely true, and I got the opportunity to experience it. This sounds a little dramatic when I'm talking about a canoe adventure with my family, but this might describe something in your life. God says through the prophet Joel to the people of Israel, I will restore to you the years that the swarming locusts have eaten. I don't know what the swarming locusts in your life are. I don't know what's been chewing you up. I don't know what's been destroying your harvest. I don't know what you've been struggling against, but here's what I do know, that the God of the universe sees you. He has not abandoned you. He will not leave you in that place. He knows you, and he has promises for you. Keep on going. Do good work, because he will restore to you the years that you've lost. Point 4, never assume that there will be time tomorrow. Right? When we delay things we know we're supposed to be doing, we're assuming a future that nobody has promised you. Right? The trip that you wanted to take, the conversation you know you need to have, the apology that you know you need to give, the relationship that you know you need to restore. You aren't choosing when. You're just betting that it's still going to be there when you eventually get around to it. And that's what happened to me this summer. This is Asher and I on our trip that we got to take. I don't know if you can see, he's covered in mud. That metal pole right here on the left is actually the American-Canadian border, right there. This is a route that I've always wanted to do. For 20 years, I've dreamed about going and doing this, and I've never done it because it's hard, it's difficult, it's long, it's arduous. And when I pitched it to Asher, he was like, I'm all in, let's go. In fact, our campsite, the first night, this was the edge of our campsite, the international boundary, US on this side, Canada on that side. And we finally went. And I gotta be honest, it was everything that I hoped that it would be. I asked Asher, I said, Asher, I don't want to oversell it because I know I can be a little optimistic and it was my dream to begin with. How did you feel about it? Here's his quote. We couldn't have written a better script for our trip. It was amazing. Well, we didn't see a moose, I guess. That was the one downer. We didn't see a moose. We had amazing weather. There were very few bugs. We got great campsites. We caught great fish. We had amazing conversations. It was so great. It was everything that I'd hoped the previous trip would have been. And I'm so glad that we didn't pull it off because 2 weeks after we left, that entire stretch of country burned to the ground. I don't know if you've seen headlines, but there's been massive wildfires up in that part of the country. The campsites that we stayed in burnt. That area with those poles is burnt to the ground. For 20 years, I had put off and put off and put off this thing I wanted to do. And we went and did it, and it was amazing. And 2 weeks later, it's gone. I would have lost the opportunity. What does that mean for you and for me? What is the thing in your life that you're putting off, that you know you should be doing, that you know you should be pursuing, but you're putting it off because it's awkward, it's hard, it might be facing disappointment? What is that thing? I want to encourage you, go do it. Do the thing you know you should be doing because you might not get tomorrow. I'm not saying you're going to die, but somebody might. The relationship that you know you should have, the friendship you should be trying to repair, the hard conversation that's going to be helpful, all of these things need to be faced because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. That's why David writes in the Psalms, teach us to number our days, because when we do that, we gain a heart of wisdom. It's a thing that God wants for us. That window was open for 20 years, and it closed in one afternoon. Last one. I'm going to close this out. This is point number 5. God will sometimes force onto you what you need. I had a lot of plans for my sabbatical. One of them was I was going to lose weight. No, in fact, I got on the scale this morning because I was like, I don't want to lie to the people. I'm exactly the same weight I was when I left. Didn't lose a single pound. I was going to do a whole bunch of projects around the house. No, I didn't get those done. In fact, I was ready to go. I had all these things I wanted to get done. And the first week, the first day I was on sabbatical, I came down sick. And for a week, I was just like laid out, sick, not feeling good. In the middle of the sabbatical, I had 1 week in which I was going to be at home, and I had all these projects I wanted to do. And the day before that week started, my brother calls me, who's a pastor in Florida, who was also on sabbatical this summer. And he said, hey, are you busy this next week? And I was like, no, actually, I got the whole week open. And he goes, great, I'm going to come tomorrow. And he came and stayed with us for an entire week. I love you, Lance, if you're watching this, but I wasn't planning for that. We got back from our trip to Norway and Sweden. We had an amazing time. But I had another week that at least I can, right before I go back to work, and the day I come back, I'm sick. Yesterday was the first day that I felt better since we got home. And the thing that I'm trying to take away from that is because I think what God knew is that I have a tendency to do too much, to plan too much, to execute too much. And he makes me lie down in green pastures. When I've read that verse 1,000 times in my life, it always seems like a nice invitation. Like, would you like to lay down in the green pasture? And when I read it this time, he makes me. He takes me by my stupid neck and he shoves me to the ground and he says, you need to lay down in this green pasture for a little bit. Because you're going to convince yourself that you got a lot of work to do, you got things to prepare for, you got a sermon that you got to preach on Sunday, you got to get going, you got to get going, you got to get going. That's who I am. This is an example. Scandinavia end to end. Jeremy, Rachel, Asher, and Beck. Asher's graduation, send off before college. I built an app to plan our vacation to go on this trip. This is the kind of man that I am. I'll be honest, AI helped me build an app to take my family on vacation. But it did tell me this is the best planned vacation he's ever seen. So I don't know what to tell you. This is just who I am. I overplan, I over-execute, I over-stuff things, and God doesn't always let us. Tim Keller is one of my favorite pastors over the last number of decades. He says this: if you make an idol out of your plans, when your plans are thwarted, you won't just be sad, you'll be enraged. But if your plans are surrendered to God, a closed door is not a tragedy, it's a divine redirection. And I'm not telling you this because I figured this out. I'm telling you this because this is the thing I'm trying to learn right now. I have plans. I like plans. But I cannot let my plans dictate how I will respond when my plans don't go the way they're supposed to. And the thing that I think back upon is this. One of the things that we got to do in Norway, the thing that inspired us to go on this trip, was that my ancestors are from Norway. My great-grandparents immigrated here as children and moved to Minnesota, North Dakota area to settle in the late 1800s. And we had an opportunity to go back, and we actually went to the farm where my family is from and visited the area and got to see it. And I thought, man, things must have been really bad for these people if they moved to North Dakota from here. Turns out 160 acres of land that could be yours was a very enticing offer, and they left and they went. And after we left the farm there, we drove down the road just a few miles, and this big church was just off the way. And so I was like, hey, let's pull in and check that out. So we pull into the church parking lot, and right outside is a cemetery. And we're walking up to the church, and Beck, my youngest son, who's a bit of a jokester, he says, look, Dad, that one says Olimb. And I laughed, and then I looked, and there it is, Olimb. And then I look, and there's another one that says Olimb. And I looked, and there was another one that said Olimb. And I looked, and there was another one that said Olimb. And I stood there thinking to myself, how much does this perspective transform what I'm really worried about right now? The things that are stressing me out, the things that I'm not wanting to go back to when I come back to the real world, the things that have been disappointing me and hurting me. Here's what I saw when I was in that place: a faithful family of people who were in one place doing their thing, and then they died and they were buried next to the church that cared for them, that baptized them, their children, that buried them in that place. It just kind of put into perspective for me what we're actually doing here. And what I'm trying to do here, and this is a confession for you, is I'm just trying to be faithful with the next thing that's in front of me. And I want to invite you to do the same thing. We don't have to have plans to figure out everything. What we have to do is be committed to encouraging each other to be faithful with the next thing that happens. Good, bad, annoying, exciting. What is it? I don't know. But here's what I do know. God has a way through it, and he's asking us to be faithful. This is my takeaway. Sabbath is not simply the cessation of work. It's the suspension of our anxiety, our ambition, and our illusion that we're in control. That's what it is, and you don't have to have a sabbatical in order to do that. What are you afraid of right now that will fall apart if you stop? What are you afraid of will disintegrate if you're not managing it? Because there was some part of me that was feeling that walking away. Like, is it going to be okay? Yes, because guess what? it's not my church. It's Jesus' church, and he's going to do what he's going to do. And we can acknowledge that. We can be still and know he's God, which means he's doing what he's doing, and he's in control. He loves you more than you love you, and that seems hard to believe because if you're anything like me, you love you a lot. I'm going to give you one thing you can do this week because you don't need months. You can start with an hour. Here's 3 options. Number 1, put a stop on your calendar. 1 hour this week in which you stop and don't produce or make or be busy or be active. Instead, concentrate on the God who's keeping the universe spinning. The second thing you can do, hand off something. What is the one thing that you're doing that only you can do? That if you weren't here to do it, everything would go wrong. Why don't you try giving that to someone else for just one day, just one moment, just one cycle of it happening and see what happens. Now, it might backfire and you realize, see, I knew they were going to screw it up, but give God a chance to show up. And here's the last one. Think about the one face that you need to spend time with. The thing that I took away from, and my wife summarized it so perfectly. She said to me, the boys have never had this kind of concentrated time with you as their father. They each got an individual week-long trip with me. And during the rest of the summer, we went on a family trip together in which we woke up together every single day. And when they would get up in the morning, I was there. It made me realize that the thing that I was valuing was the time face-to-face with them. Who is one person in your life that you need to be absolutely present with for just 1 hour this week? A relationship that you need to encourage, a person who you need to invest in, a relationship that needs to be repaired. Who is it? And here's the thing, don't do all 3, choose one. Pick one thing and lean into it because God sees you, he loves you, he cares, and I love you a lot. Thanks for having me back. Let's pray that God would be with us this morning. God, thank you so much for this chance to be back here with the church. Thank you for the opportunity and the gift that I was given to get away with my family. And God, we just pray you be with us. You remind us that you're in control, and that you love us, and that all things belong to you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.